Hello, I'm Alistair McIntyre of Electric Scotland. I'm going to entitle this video West Dumbarton. The reason I'm doing that is I want to do a little kind of presentation on to Dumbarton because I read in the BBC News just the other day there that local people, businesses, landowners and historians are being asked how best to promote Dumbarton Rock as a tourism destination. And basically, I know exactly how to do it. I'm pretty sure they won't do it, but I think they would be daft not to do it. But there again, there's many daft people around, so they probably won't do anything about it. But I'd like to use it as a basis for making a presentation about how you can promote an actual community anywhere in the world onto the web. So basically, you've got the mix of local and international all woven into one. To me, this is something I've wanted to do for, must be over 25 years now. And I have never yet managed to find any community anywhere in the world that were willing to take on the challenge of this type of project. I'm well aware that social media is massive these days. But as someone said the other day there, I think it was a site that was about Leith, saying they want to build a great archive of historical information about Leith. But they did say, like, they've got a very good Facebook page which lots of people visit, but it's not really conducive to putting on the type of archival material they want to make easily available. And for that they need a website. The other aspects of why you need a website to do this type of project is it's really very simple in that we want to put a whole mix of material up: videos, text, pictures, audio, all kinds of stuff and information. And you can only really gather that with a website. I mean, for example, Electric Scotland is already the largest site on the history of Scotland and the Scots, both at home and abroad, in the world. It's huge. I don't think there's any aspect of history that you cannot learn about on Electric Scotland. I spent years delving into antiquarian resources and making them publicly available on the site. So if you want to know about the Scottish regiments, I've got tons of information about Scottish regiments. If you want to know about the major battles, I've got a 3-volume book which tells you about all the major battles that Scotland were involved in. If you want to learn about how the Scots went overseas, in the early days, of course, mostly we went to Europe. And I've got prodigious information on the Scots that went to Poland, Russia, Prussia, Germany, Poland, I mean everywhere, Sweden. And what they did in those countries was amazing. And I've got a ton of information about what the Scots have done in the US and Canada and Australia, New Zealand, Asia, all over the world. You can only really present all that through a website. But it's a mixture of information. And when I was reading that thing about West Dumbartonshire Council wanting to promote Dumbarton Rock in the area as a tourism destination, it came to mind that what I'd like to see is that real community getting involved, and that's what they say, they want to get local people involved. Well, you can get local people involved on a major project that promotes the area. And that's really following that community through the text, words, video, links, pictures of the people of the area. Now, I can do that on Electric Scotland because Electric Scotland, I mean, every year we get at least 1.65 million visitors to the site. And bearing in mind I'm a history site, it means that probably I've reached everyone in the Scots diaspora at one time or another since the site's been going. Because people get focused on some of their history and genealogy, and they'll make good use of my website. But like everything else, you know, they have done a fair bit of work on it and they want to move on to something else. Which is not to say they won't come back. But it's not like a news site in that breaking news is going up every single day. Although having said that, on my index page I do have a little news feed, so information in there changes every day. But the thing is, to get involved, it came about in my mind because of a BBC project. Now I can't remember exactly how, at least 15 years ago when I was in Scotland, I noticed the BBC got re-tied in with the web, and bearing in mind when the web was new, there was a huge amount of press on it almost every day, something new happening. In fact, I think one researcher said that it was the hardest research project they've been ever asked to do, because what they wrote one day that was accurate, something new came out the next day that made it inaccurate. So it was a changing mode constantly in those very early days of the web. But basically what the BBC did was they took a town in England and they persuaded a number of the local residents to take on the internet, and by that they meant they provided them all with computers with internet access on it. And I think it was over a 12-week period, although I may be wrong on that. But the idea was to follow those people to see how they interacted with the web and what they thought about the web. And the idea was that during those 12 weeks they would do individual interviews in people's homes, but they also, once a week, they would get together in a local pub to share their knowledge with each other. And what I found is that this is taking a real people, real community, and getting them involved personally as well as online. And for example, there was two guys that had been childhood friends, really good friends at school, but lost touch with each other. And some 30 years later, they both got involved in this project, because lo and behold, they were both living in the same village. And neither of them knew the other one lived there. So the fact that they actually went to the first pub meeting and they met each other, gosh, they were just almost speechless knowing that each other of them had settled in the same town. But also, as people were comparing what they discovered on the web, a lot of them were getting obviously interested because they were interested in that, and someone else said, oh, I'm interested in that as well. I've been looking at that and I found this, and lo and behold, what was happening then after that was they used to meet in each other's homes, have tea together, have a chat and blather and surf the web. So there was a lot of friendships that grew out of that, personal friendships. And of course the web itself helped people with their various hobbies and projects and stuff like that. And they were all gobsmacked and amazed at how much information that you could get on the web, even back in those early days. But to me, it was taking a real community and making it even tighter and better by doing stuff online. And that's what came to me, was if I could take a real community and make it a virtual one, then I thought the power of that must be extraordinary. It's not just getting the local people involved, but if the local people are getting involved online, so people can read about what they're doing, getting up to, that gets them interested, that makes them have a desire to either do business with a local business that's advertising on the web or telling us about their business, or even going there for a holiday so they can meet some of the people they've met online. But it just builds that whole sense of community. And so what I'm saying to West Dumbartonshire Council, if you really want to do something, now's the time to grasp the nettle and get everyone involved. And by that, I mean everyone involved, from the poorest to the wealthiest, everyone in between, businesses, charities, churches, religious organisations, everyone involved. Everyone's got a story to tell. I mean, even someone that's unemployed, but even today most people have still got a computer at home with internet access. So I mean, it's easy enough to send an email because you can knock up some information about your life and stuff like that. And if you're, I mean, there's a lot of people aren't having to live on Social Security. That's not to say they can't write a story about living on Social Security and how difficult it is, and they could tell us that story. And also they could suggest things, small things that might make a huge difference in their lives. And of course, as that's going up, other people are reading it, and hopefully that will influence the powers that be to make changes. So even though you're the poorest of the poor, you can still influence people. So what I'm really saying is that when you create a website, you may be lucky to get a few hundred people going to it. If you're really, really good and push it like anything, you might get a few thousand coming to it. Electric Scotland starts on the basis that every year we'll get at least 1.65 million people visiting the site. Now, bearing in mind I'm not, as I say, a news site, I'm really a history site, but because so many people come to my site, I've probably got in touch with almost all of the people in the Scots diaspora worldwide who visited the site at one time or another. And they might find they're in a pub and they just happen to be talking an old poem that their mother used to say or something. It was like, what's that one? Push your granny off the bus. It's not quite it, but it's something like that. But I've got all the words of that on the site. So if you're trying to remember them and couldn't, you can come on my website and actually get the whole thing. So what I'm saying to West Dumbartonshire is, hey, why don't you do something that's just brand new, never been done anywhere in the world, and make your community a virtual one as well as a real community? That should encompass great community spirit, get people closer together, more helpful with each other. And as I say, there's lots of individuals that can do individual things. For example, there might be someone in the area that is a bird watcher. It loves birds, you know, and he might be able to take, he or she might be able to take pictures of the birds, then write a series of articles about each of the birds that you can see in the West Dumbartonshire area. So we can get a picture, we can get whatever information they can gather about that bird, they can include that with the picture, and we can build up a series. So eventually we'll have a page for every single bird you can see in that area. Then there might be some people like to go for walks in the area. So someone might say, okay, we'll send you it. We do about, you know, at least a dozen different walks that we love doing at different times of the year. So they can take their digital camera with them, take lots of pictures, send them in to me, and then just write an article to go with the set of pictures they've sent. Like I started off at such and such a place, then we went here, this is where you'll see a sign for such and such. So by reading it and looking at the pictures, you too could go to West Dumbartonshire and take that walk. And then I mean, just on that basis alone, there's a ton of information that you could develop on Dumbartonshire. But even the local businesses could be telling you a story about their businesses. They could tell us, when did they start the business? Was it inherited? Did they start it themselves? Who are they? Tell us about themselves. Tell us about their business. Even ups and downs, problems, because obviously unemployment and the Great Recession we've been through has hit a lot of businesses. Tell us about the challenges they've had to do, what changes they've made to the business to keep it going. And if they tell us a good story, then they may well find that people in the local area will start to go to the shop that they didn't previously get people in, or even people that are coming to the area on a holiday might see something of value in the shop and want to make a point of visiting that shop. So they don't need to be exporters per se to benefit from international business, but at the same time, if more and more overseas people start emailing them asking if they can supply such and such, they might actually find they've got a whole new export business. And that means they might employ more people, pay more taxes, which is all got to be good for the local area, surely. And then I say, if you talk about the fact that they want to promote Dumbarton Rock, well, on my site I've got a page about Dumbarton Rock, but I've also got a page about the history of Dumbarton itself. I've got another page which tells you about not only the history of Dumbarton, but also delving into the old days in Dumbarton with YouTube videos. All of that is encompassed within the Dumbarton pages. So if you want to know about Dumbarton, I've already got a lot of information on Dumbarton. I don't have much about Dumbarton today, because bearing in mind that one of the problems is copyright, and it's almost impossible to get permission to use copyright material on the site, so almost all of my stuff is out of copyright and is thus antiquarian material. But that's where this type of project can bring you bang up to date with Dumbarton. I mean, even to the extent the local pub could actually put their own page up on the site, send in the information, tell us what draft beers they stock, because it might surprise you to know that internationally people remember drinking Tennant's Lager. That was the most popular lager in Scotland, but when you leave Scotland you invariably can't find Tennant's Lager. So when you do go home for a holiday or a visit, one of the things you often say is, oh, I'm really looking forward to getting a Tennant's Lager. So if your pub does draft Tennant's Lager, then they're going to make a beeline for that pub. But also if you're having a ceilidh on, or a band's in, you know, why not take a video of it? And then again, you can put it on YouTube, but send us the link, and we can include that link on your page on Electric Scotland. And I say the beauty of it being Electric Scotland is you've vastly increased your user base and the amount of people that will learn about you. What I'm basically saying is we can also get people that will write regular weekly articles about some aspect of Dumbarton. Even this project that they're talking about doing, you know, if people will take the minutes of those and then they could send in a regular updates, maybe once a month, telling us how the project is moving forward, who's getting involved in it, and is any progress being made at all for that matter. But you know, they could be telling us that story, and that could be one of many stories we're telling throughout the week on Dumbarton. Because I say, everyone can write in stories. They could write in stories about their families and their history. I mean, were they always in Scotland? Did some of them come from Ireland or from Poland or from Romania? I mean, where would their ancestors come from when they settled in Scotland? All of that information is great, and if you've got old pictures of your grandparents, send them in and we'll add them to your page. But again, we need volunteers to tell us a bit more about the practical day-to-day living. For example, how about writing a story about an average day in your life? Like, how do you wake up? Does the alarm clock go, or do you just automatically wake up, or whatever? What do you have for breakfast, if anything? Do you have a shower? Whatever, or just brush your teeth, or whatever? Do you have breakfast? Then how do you go to work? And if you go to work, where do you go to work? How do you get there? By bus, train, taxi, car, whatever. And then tell us about an average day at work, and when do you break to have a coffee break or lunch break or whatever, and what time do you finish and come back home. And then what do you do at home when you get back? Do you watch telly, cook a meal? What kind of meal are you cooking, and what are you cooking it on? Gas, electric? Do you microwave it or whatever, or is it a takeout meal you have? I mean, even the minutiae of just day-to-day living is fascinating, especially if you're going to look at this 100 years from now. I mean, it may be that, you know, the last 100 years have been amazing, the amount of inventions we've come out with. We didn't have a phone 100 years ago, and now we've got cell phones, everyone's got them. But it might be in 100 years, someone's saying, oh look, they've got cell phones, they actually carry them around with them, and good grief, isn't that quaint? Because maybe 100 years from now, it's all embedded in your brain with a chip. When you're born, you get and there may be special glasses that you wear that you're watching everything on the glasses there. I mean, even that's coming out now, but what's it going to be like in 100 years' time? It's a bit like if you ask yourself, how did they live 100 years ago? It's actually quite difficult to envisage that. But of course, we've got mostly petrol cars, diesel cars today. I'm quite sure in 100 years' time all cars will be electric. And that must make a huge difference. I've already been told electric cars have much less to go wrong with them, so they're generally a lot more reliable and a lot easier and cheaper to fix as well. So that's the future, electric cars. But, you know, we want to write today and tell people what life is like today. It's like even taking pictures of a local supermarket. What kind of food do we have in? And how might that change in 100 years' time? Well, we've no idea, but unless it's going to be like a Star Trek, you just talk into your food dispenser in your home and say, fish and chips please, and it just appears, you know, and you've got your fish and chips, so you don't go shopping anymore. No idea what's going to happen in the future from that point of view. But the thing is that unless we write about what we're doing today, people 100 years from now won't really know how we're living. So it's a question of individuals can write articles, individuals can do their own videos, individuals can take pictures, and individuals can tell us the history of their own families and what they do to work, at school. And because school kids, they could be telling us what a day is like at school. We could even get the school kids involved in a wee project or other. And then we can get the churches involved. They can tell us, they may hopefully get a video of one of their church services to give us a picture of what it's like. I mean, the local bank can be telling stories, the local doctors could be telling us stories. They might say, well, in this area, these are the permanent diseases and problems we have. You know, and then look at the care areas. I mean, here in Chatham, we have a thing called CHAP, which is really home help for people 60 and over. But for example, if there's an old age pensioner that's a bit stuck at home, can't really get out because of mobile problems, they have volunteers that can go and spend a couple of hours with them once a week and just chat and blather with them, just be social. But again, those people that can't get out because they've got home help, often they've got a computer or the internet, so there's no reason they can't type up a story of their life and reminisce about the old days when they were younger and what their grandparents maybe told them in the old days. So, you know, we can build a phenomenal amount of information up. And as I say, if there's a special event coming up in Dumbarton, write about it, videotape it, send it in, write up pictures. So you've got all aspects. If there's a local farm in the area, perhaps we can follow the farmer for a year, so he can then does either videos or pictures and write articles. So, like, it might start week such and such. Then we'll be telling us this week he's doing the ploughing or whatever, and what's involved in all of that, and what the crops he's growing. But, you know, give us a week on the farm. In the following week, we get to follow him. So over a 12-month period, we get to see what the life is like in a farm year, essentially. So, and again, businesses can tell you these kind of stories as well. Tourism is usually pretty useless because tourism people don't know how to write anymore. And they don't really know how to communicate very well, but we can try and get some of the tourist people to get involved with us. That means that we can get a decent map of the area so people know how to get there. We can maybe look at flight deals and the best way to get to Dumbarton. I mean, where would you fly to, then how would you get there, and where would you stay? So obviously to do that we'd need to profile bed and breakfasts, hotels and guest houses and self-catering and everything in the area. So all of that would need to be done, and every single one of them should be able to do us an article, a proper article about their business. Tell us about themselves. Tell us their names. I mean, how often do you go to a hotel site? We give you personal service, but can you find the name of the owner of the business? No, because while they might offer personal service, they certainly won't tell you their name. So how personal is that? It's ridiculous. And then there's things like clans and families, because a lot of people come for clan gatherings. And I'm not aware of any clans in Dumbarton, but certainly there's probably certain families that live in the area. So are there any family societies that might write about their families in the area? So it just goes on and on and on. And as I say, if they've got this particular project, they could be doing a monthly report for the site online. And what we do basically is we get a banner advert, a big banner advert in the header of my website, because I'm willing to do this. So a big banner advert, but that banner would change each week to reflect the official weekly article that Dumbartonshire Council will commission to be written. And I would say if we did it on a 52-week basis, a contract over 1 year or maybe 2 years, whatever, But basically what you do is that you plan it out. So eventually you've got really good articles about every single aspect of Dumbarton. And if you can't find 52 articles to write, then go back to school, is all I can say. Because there's got to be all kinds of things. Write about the police force in the area. What are the local police doing, or what do they see as areas of problems? Social Security could be writing articles. And they could be interesting and informative articles. Gives us the background statistics, the facts. And then hopefully as we develop it, we'll get some of the people that are causing trouble in the area to write their own articles about why they're causing trouble in the area. And then we might even be able to do some confidential surveys, because as they start to really get together and trust the website is doing a good job, then we could do some surveys, which I'm sure a lot of the people will be willing to fill in. And that might give us little insights that we hadn't previously got. As I say, if you're in Social Security, give us a graphic detail on how you live and how you can clothe yourself and feed yourself and pay whatever rent you have to pay and stuff like that. Tell us the gritty details and where the real problems are. And as I say, what in your opinion they could do to make life a lot better. There's no point in asking for I want £1 million every year, please. I mean, be practical in what you think could make a big difference, but maybe at a very low cost, in your view at least. And it's got to be your views that we want to hear about. So, if you take that whole thing, then we can look at any tourist resorts, museums and stuff like that. But again, if you're doing a picture of a shop, get in there, take pictures of the shelves in the shop so we can see the produce. You know, and if you're particularly proud of featuring anything, and as I say, if this is an ongoing project, there's no reason why we can't have a calendar of events for the area. And so anytime anyone's got something on special, they just email it in and we'll add it to the calendar. And equally well, if you've got a lot of retail businesses in the area and they're doing promotions, send us in a wee article and we can add it to your page, or we could even maybe do a feature page, special promotions in the area, or whatever. So if you're a china shop, for example, you might say we're doing a real special deal on such and such, you know, and 50% off and da-da-da-da. Send us a picture of the deal you're doing. And we could put it up on that special part of the page. And so if people start to find a lot of stuff there, they'll probably go there each week to see what's going on in the area. And that means they'll get more people visiting your shop. But it's not only that. As I say, because the site by its very nature is international, that doesn't mean someone in Australia couldn't say, that's just what I've been looking for. And they might send you an email saying, look, we'd like to buy that. We're willing to pay extra for if you do good packing and could FedEx it to us, we'll pay all the extra fees for that and we'll pay you in advance. We'll give you a credit card. And make sure if you're a shop, you let us know if you take credit cards and stuff like that. So, you know, the potential is endless, basically. And if you've got people that have got great ideas for the way you can promote, then send us the articles and we'll put them up on the site. So, you know, we could be doing a ton of work. And what we'll do is we will archive all that material on the site so that it'll never be lost. It'll always be there for the generations ahead to read. So while we might do a snapshot of Dumbartonshire for a couple of years, that's not to say you might want to say, hey, look, this has been brilliant, let's keep it running. You know, in which case you can take over the running of it, take all the data that I've gathered on the site. So you take a copy of all that, create your own website, now you've got it, and keep going. But all of that's really up to the community to decide if they can do it. But I do believe you need to have, and this is why when I read this BBC article about trying to promote West Dumbartonshire, I just thought to myself, well, they say local people. So, you know, these meetings give a talk about how you can contribute articles to your project site on Electric Scotland. And as I say, because you've got so many visitors, you get an immediate big lift in the number of people that will read about you. And if you're writing really good articles every week, then I would presume most people that read the first one will say, hey, that was really interesting, and make a point of reading the next one. And because we'll change the banner advert each week, it'll always promote Dumbarton, but the banner, clicked on the banner, will always point to the next article. And when you go to the next article, there'll be a link there where you can read all the other older articles if you've come to it late. So, you know, all kinds of things we can do there. But I would stress that this is basically taking a real community and also turning it into a virtual community. That way the world can get involved with your community in real life. So, businesses can suddenly come to you and say, hey, we can do business, we can sell your product or whatever. So let's investigate. There's no reason why we can't get Scottish Development International involved in if there's exports and queries coming in. Where can you go to get information and stuff like that? So no, we could build immensely, and it would be in complement to the West Dumbartonshire's own council website, where they'll keep giving you the information about all the local matters that go on. But if we tell the story internationally, then I think it could make a huge difference to the area. So, as I say, that's my kind of pitch, as it were, to West Dumbartonshire. But I equally want to say this to everyone else that's watching this. No matter where you live in the world, my site is all about Scotland and the Scots. And if you've got Scots descent around the place and you've got stories to tell, we'd love to hear from you. And I'd love to hear from you in all kinds of ways. I mean, if you'd like to tell me the story about your ancestors and how you came to live where you currently live, you know, that would be great. Yes, remember privacy concerns. Personally, I'm not the least bit bothered about privacy. Me personally. But that's just me. But privacy is important. So if you're sending pictures, make sure you got permission to send the pictures with whoever is showing in the pictures, and make sure you don't give maybe an actual address information. I don't see why you can't give a general area that you live in. But, as I say, privacy is important to some people. So just make sure that what you send in won't compromise someone's privacy. But as I say, I'd love to hear stories of immigrants and how they decided to leave Scotland and go live in other parts of the world. But I'd also love to hear from a lot of local Scots that are still living in Scotland. I mean, where do you live? What do you do? What's life like? You know, and if you've got particular interests, as I say, I mentioned bird watching. It might be some people in Scotland just travel all over Scotland trying to get all the birds. And they maybe got a great collection of pictures and they can give us. So how about volunteering, and every week you could feature a new bird in Scotland that you've seen in Scotland. So you get the picture and you write a bit of an article about that bird, where you saw it, stuff like that. And maybe if you know any of its feeding habits or flight habits or whatever, you can write some extra information. So over time we build a huge amount of information. And equally well, wildlife and green matters. It's a bit like Dundee University, apparently doing some major research in health sciences, but we never really hear from them. You know, occasionally something will come up in the news and you'll read about it, but I'm quite sure if the press people at these places could send us articles about discoveries and what's happening, that would be of interest. We'd like to put them up on a regular basis. But unfortunately the communication in Scotland is poor. Very poor, but it's not just Scots. I mean, for example, a lot of Scots settled in North Carolina, and I really wanted to profile North Carolina, both in history and today. I've been able to do it in history because I'm not reliant on anyone else other than antiquarian material, which I can find. But when it comes to North Carolina of today, I really know very little, because the people in North Carolina, you'd write to the mayor, the senator, the congressman and all that, none of them will bother replying to you. They just don't care, basically. And they don't see the benefit. Really thick, in other words. And that's unfortunately. People don't know the benefits of good communication. I can send people to sites, but we know most tourist sites are pretty useless on the whole. They don't really give us the nitty-gritty information we want. And so they fail to do that much. And as I say, the trouble about tourism places is they always assume their website's the preeminent place, but unfortunately, unless someone's thinking of going there, they'll never visit your site ever. So the only way to get new people to come to your area is actually advertise in places that are not in your area and encourage people to go. And one of the ways you can do it is through the web, because you can write seriously good series of articles with pictures and videos and all kinds of things, and really make a case for going there. But do they do that? No, they don't. Thick, you know, unfortunately, that's the way the tourist trade is these days. So, there it goes. But as I say, I would certainly encourage everyone to communicate. I'm always looking for good articles. I'm always looking for people that would like to send series of articles in. As I say, I've got a Donna Flood, who is a matriarch of the Ponca Indian tribe in Oklahoma, wrote to me one time. This is many years ago now. She was she got a pictorial genealogy book of her family in which there were some Scottish links. And she happened to say that she just couldn't get this published anywhere, or anyone that said they would publish it would cost far too much. She couldn't afford it. And so I said, well, what? And she said, yeah, I've got a photostat book of this. I said, well, send it to me and I'll put it up on the site for you. And she was amazed and gratified and very grateful. So I got it, and yeah, it took me some time, but I ended up and I got the whole book up on the site. And ever since then, she started to write a series of articles by email to me. So she doesn't have a lot of money, so she wrote a series of articles about frugal living, about ways to make do on very little money indeed. And she said in frugal recipes, which was also useful because they were basically nutritious meals that didn't cost very much at all. Then she wrote stories about Indian lore and Indian humour, for like native Indian humour, which was fun, because obviously these are things that amused her. So she sent them in, and I've added them to the site. She also went to Chilocco Indian School, of which she had a great deal of time, and through her writing articles and that, a lot of people got in touch with her, because apparently everyone who went to Chilocco just loved the school. But unfortunately, it's really run down these days. It's pretty derelict, and they were hoping that at least they could reserve part of that. And that's the other problem you've got, is that I got involved with a project. It was the Fallbrook in Heritage Site near Halton Hills in Ontario. And one of the things I did with them was the University of Guelph were doing an oral history project. So they were videotaping the elders in that area, not only talking about the Fallbrook Heritage Farm that a lot of them remembered visiting in their youth, but also talking generally about life in the area and people in the area they met. And these have been recorded. Well, I just talked to one of the kind of organisers, Sandy Mackay, just recently. He said, you know, of all the videos we did, Alistair, he said, all but one have now passed away. So he said, in some respects, we're delighted we were able to get them, because they were telling us great stories, and of course if they died without telling them, we wouldn't know these stories anymore. And that's why I think it's important that people record their histories and their wee stories and all of that kind of thing. And I'd love to share that with the world through Electric Scotland. So, anyway, I probably talked enough about this, but so, West Dumbartonshire, if you happen to see or read this or watch this video, hopefully it'll give you some ideas of what you could do. And to the rest of you, I hope maybe you might think about how to contribute some information to us about Scots and our descendants anywhere in the world. Thanks for listening to me, and I really look forward to hearing from a whole pile of you. Thanks.